The shuttle fell through the ice moon's atmosphere like a burning stone. Inside, Hyun gripped his seat restraints and watched the pilot fight with controls that no longer responded. Red warning lights flashed across every surface. The main engines had died 3 minutes ago. Now they were just falling. Hyun was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was a survival specialist assigned to protect diplomatic missions in dangerous environments. Before joining the Terran Diplomatic Corps 8 months ago, he had spent 10 years as a cold-water rescue swimmer. He had pulled drowning people from Arctic waters. He had survived in conditions that killed most humans within minutes. That was his entire job, staying alive when everything wanted him dead. Next to him sat Bora, the medical officer. She was young, barely 24, and this was her first deep space assignment. Her hands shook as the shuttle screamed through the blizzard. Behind them, filling the entire cargo section, sat 14 dragon warriors from the Dracnith Empire. Each one stood nearly 3 meters tall. Their scales gleamed red and gold under the emergency lights. They were soldiers bred for combat on desert worlds where temperatures reached 200 degrees. They were coming to this ice moon for peace talks. The war between the Dracnith Empire and the Aguacate Collective had lasted 5 years. Thousands had died. Now finally both sides had agreed to meet. The dragon warriors were the honor guard. Hyun and Bora were there because humans had become the galaxy's favorite neutral party. Everyone trusted humans to be fair. The shuttle hit the ground hard. Metal screamed. Hyun felt his restraints cut into his chest. Something exploded in the back. Then everything went quiet except for the howling wind outside. Hyun opened his eyes. His head hurt. Blood ran down from a cut above his eye. He checked himself quickly. Nothing broken. He looked at Bora. She was alive, breathing fast, eyes wide with shock. "We need to move," Hyun said. His voice came out calm. He had trained for this. Panic killed people faster than cold. The dragon warriors were already trying to stand. Their commander, Vectros, pulled himself up using the broken seats. He was the largest of them all, his scales darker than the others, marking him as a veteran of many battles. He looked around the destroyed shuttle with cold calculation. "Status," Vectros ordered. "Main power is dead," said one of the warriors. "Hull breach in 3 locations. Communication system is damaged. Emergency beacon is transmitting but weak." Hyun unbuckled himself and moved to the nearest hull breach. Wind screamed through the gap. Ice crystals filled the air. He pulled out a portable scanner and checked the external temperature. -70 degrees. The number made his stomach drop. -70 was death temperature for most species. For dragon warriors whose biology ran hot, whose scales were designed to radiate heat away from their bodies, it was catastrophic. On their homeworld, they lived in deserts where rock melted. They could survive in volcanoes, but cold was their weakness. Already, Hyun could see ice forming on their scales. The warriors moved slowly, like their muscles were freezing. One of the younger ones, Thex, stumbled and nearly fell. His scales had turned from bright red to dull gray. "We need shelter," Hyun said. "Now this shuttle is full of holes. The temperature will drop to match outside within an hour. We cannot stay here." Vectros looked at him. The commander's eyes were vertical slits, reptilian, designed to see in bright desert light. "Human, we cannot move in this cold. Our bodies are shutting down." "I know," Hyun said. "That's why I need you to trust me." He moved fast. His Arctic training took over. He pulled emergency supplies from the intact storage lockers. Thermal blankets, emergency heat packs, survival tools. He threw them to Bora. "Set up the beacon where it has the best signal. Keep transmitting our coordinates." Then he turned to the dragon warriors. "I need you to move to the back of the shuttle. The cargo bay section still has 3 walls intact. We can seal it." The warriors moved like old men. Their powerful muscles, built for crushing enemies and lifting massive weapons, barely worked. Hyun helped Thex walk. The young warrior's skin was cold to touch, like metal left outside. That was bad. Dragon warriors should be hot. Their internal temperature around 150 degrees. Thex felt like he was already dying. Hyun got all 14 warriors into the cargo bay. It was a small space, barely large enough. He used broken hull panels to seal the openings. He activated every heat pack they had and placed them in the center. He wrapped thermal blankets around the warriors, but he could see it was not enough. The temperature kept dropping. The heat packs were designed for humans, not for creatures 3 times as large whose biology was bleeding heat into the frozen air. Vectros sat against the wall, his breathing shallow. Human, Hyun, you should save yourself and the female. Take the survival supplies and find better shelter. Do not waste resources on us. We are already dead. No, Hyun said simply. That is an order, human. I don't take orders from you, Commander. I'm Terran Diplomatic Corps. My job is to keep everyone alive. That includes you. Hyun looked at Bora. She had set up the beacon on top of the wrecked shuttle, giving it the best chance to reach orbit. She came back inside, shivering despite her thermal suit. The beacon is working, she said. But the blizzard is blocking most signals. It's very weak, Hyun nodded. He had expected that. The ice moon of Veyril 7 was famous for its storms. This was the worst possible place to crash. But they had to work with what they had. He made his decision. Bora, I need you to stay wrapped in the thermal core. Conserve your heat. Monitor the beacon. He started removing his outer layers. What are you doing? Bora asked. Something stupid, Hyun said. But it might work. He explained his plan. The dragon warriors needed heat. The heat packs were not enough. The thermal blankets only trapped heat that was already there. But humans could generate heat. Human bodies burned calories to create warmth. Humans could shiver, could increase their metabolism, could survive in cold that killed other species. It was an evolutionary gift from the ice ages when humanity's ancestors had hunted in frozen wastelands. You'll die, Bora said. Maybe, Hyun agreed. But if I do nothing, they definitely die. And I die anyway when the cold reaches us. At least this way we have a chance. He stripped down to his base layer. The cold hit him immediately like knives against his skin. He had felt this before, in Arctic waters, in survival training. His body knew what to do. He felt his muscles begin to shiver, generating heat. He felt his blood pressure rise, pushing warmth to his extremities. He positioned himself among the dragon warriors. He used the thermal blankets to create a shelter within the shelter, making the smallest space possible to trap heat. Then he pressed himself against Thex first, the youngest, the coldest. He put his back against the warrior's massive chest. The contact made him gasp. Thex was so cold, it was like pressing against a frozen wall. But Hyun stayed there. He felt his body heat flowing into the warrior. He felt Thex's body slowly, very slowly, beginning to warm. Everyone huddle close, Hyun said through chattering teeth. Share body heat. Dragon warrior biology is different from human, but heat is heat. We make this space as small as possible. We share everything we have. The warriors moved closer together. Hyun positioned himself in the center, moving between them every few minutes, spreading his warmth as much as possible. His teeth chattered so hard it hurt. His muscles shook continuously. But he kept moving, kept fighting, kept generating heat. Outside, the blizzard raged. The temperature dropped further. The weak emergency beacon sent its signal into the storm, hoping someone, somewhere, would hear. Inside the shelter, one human fought to keep 14 aliens alive through nothing but will and the stubborn human refusal to accept death. Admiral Suji of the Aguacate Collective stood on the bridge of her flagship and stared at the data coming from the ice moon. The numbers made no sense. They had to be wrong, but the sensors kept showing the same impossible readings. Suji was not human. She was Aguacate, from a species that lived in deep oceans on water worlds. Her body was adapted for pressure and cold water. Her skin could change colors to communicate emotions. Right now, her skin flickered between blue and gray, the colors of confusion and concern. Her species had been at war with the Drachnith Empire for 5 years. The dragon warriors had attacked Aguacate merchant ships. They had called the Aguacate weak because they preferred diplomacy to combat. The Drachnith thought anyone who did not worship strength was worthless. Suji had lost friends to dragon warrior raids. She had every reason to hate them. So when the distress signal first appeared, showing a crashed shuttle carrying dragon warriors, her first thought was simple. Let them freeze. Let them learn what weakness feels like. Let them die on that ice moon and save the galaxy the trouble. But then the second data stream arrived. A human biosignature, just one, moving among 14 Drachnith signatures. And the readings from that human made Suji stop thinking about revenge and start thinking about something else entirely. Captain Daeho, Suji said, show me the thermal data again. Daeho was her tactical officer, efficient and precise. He pulled up the thermal imaging on the main screen. The blizzard on the ice moon blocked most scans, but their advanced sensors could read heat signatures through the storm. What they showed seemed impossible. One small heat source moved constantly among 14 larger ones. The small source was human-sized. Its temperature fluctuated wildly, dropping dangerously low, then spiking up again, over and over. The medical computer flagged it as critical a dozen times. By all measurements, that human should have died hours ago from exhaustion and hypothermia. But the human kept moving, kept fighting, and the 14 dragon warriors, who should have frozen to death within the first hour, were still alive. "Pull up the human's file," Suji ordered. Daiho worked his console. Name, Hyun. Age, 32. Born on Earth, coastal region. Profession, survival specialist. Previous occupation, Olympic swimmer and Arctic rescue diver. Joined Terran Diplomatic Corps 8 months ago. No combat experience, no military training. He is rated as a cold water specialist. Suji studied the image of Hyun. He looked ordinary. Average height for a human. Lean build like most swimmers. Dark hair. A calm face with no distinguishing marks. Nothing about him screamed warrior or hero. He looked like someone you would pass on a street and never remember. "What is he doing?" Suji asked quietly. "According to the bioscan," Daiho said, "he is using his own body heat to warm the dragon warriors. Human biology can generate heat through muscle contractions and increased metabolism. He appears to be moving between the warriors, sharing his heat, preventing them from entering full hypothermic shutdown." "That should not be possible," said Lieutenant Juan, the medical officer. "Human core temperature needs to stay above 35 degrees to survive. The readings show his temperature has dropped to 32 degrees multiple times. He should be unconscious. He should be dead." "But he is not," Suji said. She had studied humans. Everyone in the galaxy studied humans now. They had appeared on the galactic stage only 50 years ago, a young species from a death world. Earth was classified as a Type 9 hazard planet. Everything there tried to kill you. Predators, diseases, weather, plants, even the microbes were dangerous. Humans had evolved to survive all of it. The Aguacate had thought humans were lucky primitives. Their technology was not the most advanced. Their ships were not the fastest. Their weapons were not the strongest. But they had one thing that confused every other species. They never gave up. Humans would fight impossible battles. They would protect their teammates at any cost. They would do insane things and somehow survive. Suji had thought the stories were exaggerated. Propaganda from the Terran expansion to make them seem more impressive than they were. But now she was watching proof. One human armed with nothing but his body and will was fighting entropy itself, fighting the cold, fighting death. And he was winning. "The Dragon Warriors," Suji said. "Do we have their identities?" "Yes, Admiral. Commander Vectros and 13 elite warriors. They were part of the delegation coming for the peace talks." Peace talks. The words felt strange. The war between the Aguacate and Dracnith had been brutal. But both sides were tired. Tired of death. Tired of destruction. The humans had offered to mediate, to host neutral talks on Veyral 7. Everyone had agreed because humans somehow made everyone trust them. And now those talks were in danger. The Dragon Warriors were going to die. The Dracnith Empire would blame the Aguacate. The war would continue worse than before. More deaths. More destruction. Unless someone did something. "Admiral," Daiho said carefully, "we could send a rescue ship. One vessel. We are the closest fleet to Veyral 7. We could reach them before they freeze." Suji looked at her tactical officer. She knew what he was really asking. Should they save their enemies? Should they risk Aguacate lives to rescue dragon warriors who had killed their people? But that was not the real question. The real question was, what did it mean that a human was down there fighting alone, refusing to abandon beings who were not his species, not his friends, not even his allies? Just people who needed help. Suji thought about Aguacate culture. Her people valued wisdom over strength. They valued mercy over revenge. They believed the strongest person was not the one who could kill the most enemies, but the one who could protect the most lives. It was a philosophy the Dracnith had mocked for centuries, but here was a human who seemed to understand that philosophy better than anyone. A human who was not even Aguacate, who had no connection to their culture, who just believed that protecting life was the right thing to do. "How many ships do we have in this sector?" Suji asked. "Counting all nearby fleets," Deho said, checking his data. 102 vessels, ranging from carriers to rescue craft. "Send a message to all of them. Full priority. Use my command codes." "What message, Admiral?" Suji's skin changed color, shifting to bright gold. In Aguacate culture, gold meant honor. It meant a decision that would be remembered. "Tell them we are conducting a rescue operation. Tell them there is a human on Varel 7 who is protecting 14 dragon warriors with nothing but his body and will. Tell them that if one human can do the impossible for beings who are not his people, then we can do no less. Every ship is to converge on Varel 7. We are bringing everyone home." The bridge went silent. Every crew member stared at their admiral. This was not just a rescue. This was a statement. 102 ships for 15 people. The largest Aguacate deployment in peacetime history. "Admiral," Juan said quietly, "the Dracnith have been our enemies. They have killed our people." "Are you certain?" "I am certain," Suji said, "because I just watched a human teach us what honor really means. He does not care that the dragon warriors are his enemies. He does not care that saving them might kill him. He only cares that they are alive and he can help them. That is strength. That is honor. And if we claim to value those things, we must act." She turned to face her crew. "The human's name is Hyun. Remember it. Because when our children ask us why we changed our relationship with both humanity and the Dracnith Empire, we will tell them about this moment. About one man who showed us what we should have known all along. Protecting life is never wrong, no matter who that life belongs to." Deho began transmitting the orders. Across the sector, Aguacate ships received the command. Some captains questioned it. Some refused at first. But when they saw the data, when they watched the thermal scans of one human fighting alone in the ice, they understood. One by one, ships changed course. They formed up into a massive fleet. 102 vessels, all heading toward a frozen moon where a human they had never met was doing something impossible. Admiral Suji watched the fleet assemble on her screens. She thought about Hyun, about a man who had probably never imagined he would change galactic politics. He was just trying to keep people alive, just doing his job, just being human. And the galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. Hour 19. Hyun could not feel his hands anymore. He knew that was bad. He knew all the warning signs of severe hypothermia, numbness in the extremities, confusion, slurred speech, extreme fatigue. He had all of them. His body was eating itself to create heat, burning through muscle tissue, pushing every system beyond its limits. The medical scanner in his sleeve had stopped showing yellow warnings hours ago. Now everything was red, critical, dangerous, fatal. But he could not stop moving. Thex was the worst. The young dragon warrior had been barely conscious for the last 2 hours. His scales had turned almost white with cold. Hyun pressed his back against Thex's chest again, sharing what little heat his body still generated. He felt like he was trying to warm up a glacier. But Thex's heartbeat was still there, slow but steady, still alive. Bora watched from her position at the shelter's edge. She had tried to help at first, tried to share the burden, but Hyun had stopped her. She did not have his training. Her body was not adapted for cold water survival. If she tried to do what Hyun was doing, she would die within an hour and help no one. So she maintained the beacon, checked the warrior's vital signs, rationed the heat packs that were almost gone, and watched Hyun slowly destroy himself. "You need to rest," Bora said. Her voice shook. "Hyun, please. Just 10 minutes. Let your body recover." "Can't," Hyun managed. His teeth chattered so violently it hurt to talk. "Stop moving. They freeze. Die in minutes. But you are dying now." "Not yet," Hyun said. He tried to smile, but his face was too cold. Still moving. Still fighting. He shifted to the next warrior, moved his position, kept the heat circulating. His training had prepared him for cold water. He had spent hours in Arctic oceans. He knew how to control his breathing, how to manage his core temperature, how to keep his mind focused when his body screamed for him to quit. But this was different. This was not a training exercise. This was not a 1-hour rescue dive. This was approaching 20 hours of continuous exposure to lethal cold. His body had limits. He was reaching them. Commander Vectros drifted in and out of consciousness. The Dragon Warrior commander had fought in 100 battles. He had survived ship explosions, plasma burns, vacuum exposure. He was a veteran of the most elite military force in the galaxy, but he had never faced anything like this cold. It was shutting down his body in ways that no weapon could. In one of his conscious moments, Vectros focused on Hyun. The human looked terrible. His lips were blue. His skin was pale white. Ice crystals had formed in his hair. He shook constantly, his whole body vibrating with the effort to generate heat. By all logic, he should have been dead hours ago, human, Vectros said. His voice was weak, processed through a translator that barely worked. Why do you do this? We are not your people. We are not even your allies. Humans and Dracnith are barely neutral. Why sacrifice yourself? Hyun was quiet for a moment. He was pressed against another warrior now, trying to warm the area around the warrior's heart. When he spoke, his words came slowly, like he had to think about each one. Doesn't matter who you are, what species, what side, you are alive. I can help, so I help. Simple. That is not simple, Vectros said. That is insane. Maybe, Hyun agreed. But it is what humans do. We protect, even when stupid, even when impossible. Especially then. Vectros had heard about human behavior. The Dracnith military command had studied humans carefully when they appeared on the galactic stage. They had concluded that humans were dangerous not because of their technology or strength, but because of their unpredictability. Humans did things that made no tactical sense. They would sacrifice themselves for strangers. They would fight unwinnable battles. They would protect their enemies if they thought it was right. The Dracnith had always seen this as a weakness, emotions making them soft. But lying here, feeling Hyun's warmth keeping him alive, Vectros wondered if the Dracnith had been wrong. Maybe this was not weakness. Maybe this was a different kind of strength. If we survive, Vectros said, I will tell my people what you did. I will make them understand. Just survive, Hyun said. That is enough. Another hour passed. Then another. The blizzard outside continued without mercy. The temperature in their shelter dropped despite everything Hyun did. The heat packs were gone. The thermal blankets were all they had left. And Hyun, always Hyun, moving, fighting, refusing to quit. Bora checked the beacon again. Still transmitting. Still weak. The storm was blocking almost all the signal. Anyone trying to find them would have to be close, very close, and actively looking. Please let someone be looking, Bora whispered to herself. At hour 22, Hyun made a mistake. He tried to move from one warrior to another and his legs gave out. He collapsed between them, his body finally refusing to obey. He tried to stand, failed, tried again. Failed again. No, he whispered. Not yet. Not done, but his body was done. It had nothing left. He had burned through every reserve, pushed past every limit. His core temperature had dropped to 31 degrees. His heart rate was dangerously slow. His blood pressure was crashing. Every warning sign pointed to the same conclusion. If he did not stop, he would die within the hour. Bora crawled to him. Hyun, please. You have to rest. You have to save yourself. The warriors, Hyun said. His voice was barely a whisper. Keep them warm. Position them close. Use the blankets. They are already as close as possible. You have done everything you can. Not enough. Still cold. Still dying. Vectros watched the human struggle. Even now, even with his body failing, Hyun was trying to help. The commander made a decision. He used what little strength he had left to shift his massive body. He positioned himself next to Hyun, wrapping around the small human like a living shield. What are you doing? Hyun asked. You gave us your heat, Vectros said. Now we give you ours, what little we have. The other warriors understood. One by one, those who could still move shifted positions. They surrounded Hyun, creating a barrier with their bodies. Their scales were cold, but they still had some heat. and they could shield him from the worst of the wind that leaked through the shelter. Hyun wanted to protest, wanted to tell them they needed to conserve their warmth, but he could not speak anymore. His body had finally reached its breaking point. His eyes closed. His breathing slowed. He slipped into unconsciousness, his body forcing him to shut down to preserve the last spark of life. But even unconscious, he had positioned himself between the two weakest warriors. Even dying, he was trying to protect them. Bora sat back, tears freezing on her cheeks. She had watched her colleague fight for 23 hours, had watched him give everything, and now she could only wait and hope. The beacon continued its weak transmission. The storm continued its assault. 14 dragon warriors and 2 humans huddled together in a broken shelter on a frozen moon, waiting for rescue that might never come. But something was happening in the space above them. Something massive. Something unprecedented. The Aguacate fleet was almost there. 102 ships breaking through the storm, their sensors locked on the weak emergency signal. They were coming with every resource they had. Medical teams, heat restoration units, emergency supplies, everything needed to save 15 beings who should have died hours ago. Admiral Suji stood on her bridge and watched the ice moon grow larger on her screens. She had pushed her ships to their limits to get here. She had committed her entire fleet to this rescue. If anyone asked her to justify the expense, the risk, the sheer scale of this operation, she had a simple answer ready. One human down there had shown them what honor looked like. The least they could do was honor his sacrifice by bringing everyone home alive. All ships, Suji commanded. Prepare for emergency rescue operations. We have 15 lives to save. Let us not waste what Hyun bought with his pain. The first rescue craft touched down at hour 23. The storm was still raging, but the Aguacate pilots were the best in the galaxy. They landed their ship within 50 meters of the crashed shuttle, their sensors locked on the faint heat signatures inside. Lieutenant Yuna was the first one out. She was human, a liaison officer who had been working with the Aguacate fleet for 2 years. When Admiral Suji had announced the rescue mission, Yuna had demanded to be on the first ship down. She needed to see what one of her people had done, needed to witness it with her own eyes. The rescue team moved fast. They wore environmental suits designed for extreme cold. They carried medical equipment and heat restoration units. They had trained for every kind of emergency, but nothing had prepared them for what they found. The shelter was barely standing. It looked like it had been built from desperation and pure will. Broken hull panels, torn thermal blankets, everything held together by hope and physics. The rescue team cut through the makeshift door and stepped inside. 15 beings were huddled together in a space barely large enough for half that number. 14 massive dragon warriors wrapped around one small human. All of them were covered in frost. All of them were still. For a terrible moment, Yuna thought they were too late, thought everyone was dead. Then she saw movement. Shallow breathing. A slight shift in position. They were alive. Barely, impossibly, but alive. Medical teams now, Yuna ordered into her comm. All of them. Emergency heat restoration. Move. Aguacate medics swarmed in. They were trained for water-world emergencies, for pressure injuries and drowning cases. They had never dealt with dragon warriors or hypothermia this severe, but they had studied the data during the flight. They had prepared as much as possible. And they had one thing driving them. They would not let Hyun's sacrifice be wasted. Bora was the first to respond. She had stayed conscious, watching over everyone. When she saw the rescue team, she started crying. Relief and exhaustion hit her all at once. Help him first, Bora said, pointing at Hyun. He saved everyone. He did not stop for 23 hours. Please help him. The medics moved to Hyun carefully. He was wedged between 2 dragon warriors, his body positioned to give them maximum warmth even while unconscious. They had to gently move the warriors to reach him. When they pulled him out, Yuna felt her breath catch. Hyun looked half dead. His skin was white. His lips were blue-gray. Ice crystals covered his hair and eyebrows. The med scanner showed a core temperature of 31 degrees. His heart rate was 40 beats per minute. By every medical standard, he should have been dead. But he was breathing. Still fighting. Still alive. Get him to the medical ship, Yuna ordered. Priority 1. I want every resource we have keeping him alive. The medics wrapped Hyun in special thermal blankets that slowly raised body temperature without causing shock. They inserted IV lines for warm fluids. They placed heat packs around his core. Then they carried him to the waiting shuttle. The Dragon Warriors were more complicated. Their biology was so different from what the Aguacate medics knew. They had to raise the temperature slowly. Too fast and the warriors would go into thermal shock. Their scales were designed to radiate heat, which meant warming them required more energy than warming a human. But the Aguacate had brought equipment designed for deep-sea rescues, for bringing up creatures from superheated thermal vents. They adapted it. They improvised. They worked with Bora's guidance and the data from their medical computers. Commander Vectros was the first warrior fully conscious. The medics had stabilized his temperature and he could speak again. He looked at the Aguacate team with confusion. "You came," he said. "You saved us." "We did," said the lead medic, a female Aguacate named Jisoo. "But we are your enemies. We have fought your people for 5 years. Why would you save us?" Jisoo's skin flashed colors that translated to gentle amusement. "Because a human showed us we were wrong about what matters. He did not care that you were his enemy. He only cared that you needed help. We could do no less." By hour 25, all 15 survivors had been moved to the medical ships. The rescue had been complete. Not a single death. Against all probability, against all logic, everyone was alive. Admiral Suji visited the medical bay 3 hours later. By then, the medical teams had stabilized everyone. The Dragon Warriors were wrapped in thermal restoration pods that slowly brought their body temperature back to normal. Bora was resting in a recovery room, exhausted but healthy, and Hyun was in intensive care. Dr. Minho, the chief medical officer, met Suji outside Hyun's room. Minho was human, one of the few working with the Aguacate fleet. He had been a combat surgeon in the Terran military before joining the collective. He had seen every kind of trauma, but this case troubled him. "How is he?" Suji asked. "Alive," Minho said. "Which is the only good news. Admiral, what this man did should not have been possible. His body cannibalized its own muscle tissue for heat. His cardiovascular system was pushed beyond theoretical limits. He has tissue damage from extreme cold exposure. He suppressed pain responses that should have knocked him unconscious after the first hour. But he will recover. Yes, humans are remarkably resilient. Give him a few weeks and he will be fine physically. But Admiral, I need to show you something." Minho pulled up Hyun's genetic scan on his datapad. "I ran a full analysis because I wanted to understand how he survived. What I found is fascinating. Hyun has activated genetic sequences that most humans never use. Ancient DNA from when their ancestors hunted in ice ages. Dormant survival adaptations that only trigger under extreme stress. His body literally evolved during those 23 hours to handle the cold better." "Evolved?" Suji asked. "Temporary adaptation. His metabolism changed. His nervous system rewired itself to handle pain differently. His body became a heat generation machine. It is like watching natural selection happen in real time." Minho shook his head. "Human biology is terrifying when you really examine it. They come from a death world and it shows in every cell." Suji looked through the window into Hyun's room. He was still unconscious, his body recovering from the ordeal. Medical equipment surrounded him. Monitors showed his vital signs slowly returning to normal. "When he wakes," Suji said, "I want to speak with him." That might be a while. His body forced a shutdown to recover. Could be 12 hours, could be a day. But Suji was patient. She posted a guard outside Hyun's room. Not for security, for honor. In Aguacate culture, heroes were protected, and Hyun was a hero whether he wanted to be or not. News of the rescue spread fast. The Aguacate fleet had deployed 102 ships for 15 people. That kind of operation could not be hidden. Every species in the sector heard about it, and when they heard why, when they learned what one human had done, the story exploded across the galaxy. Commander Vectros filed his report immediately. The Drachnith Empire required detailed accounts of all missions. His report was simple and honest. A human civilian named Hyun had saved 14 Dragon Warriors by using his own body as a heat source for 23 hours. The human had nearly died, had pushed beyond all limits, had refused to abandon them even when it meant his own death. The report reached the Drachnith High Command within hours. They read it 3 times, then they read it again. Then they called an emergency council. Because what Vectros described challenged everything the Drachnith believed about strength and honor. The Aguacate Collective sent their own report to the Galactic Council. Admiral Suji wrote it personally. She described the rescue. She described Hyun's actions. She described the decision to send 102 ships. And she ended with a simple statement. The Aguacate Collective proposed a new treaty called the Viral Accord, named for the moon where one human had changed everything. The proposal was simple. Any being who demonstrated selfless courage in protecting others, regardless of species or political alignment, would be honored by all signatory species. It was a treaty based not on military strength or economic power, but on the simple human idea that protecting life was the highest calling. Within 24 hours, 15 species had signed it. Within 48 hours, 30 more joined. The Viral Accord became the fastest adopted treaty in galactic history. And at the center of it all, unconscious in a medical bay, was Hyun, a swimmer, a rescue specialist, a man who had just wanted to help people and had accidentally changed the political landscape of known space. When he finally woke, 30 hours after the rescue, the first thing he saw was Bora sitting beside his bed. "Hey," he said. His voice was rough. "Did everyone make it?" Bora started crying. "Yes, everyone, because of you." "Good," Hyun said. Then he closed his eyes and went back to sleep. Outside his room, the galaxy was changing. But Hyun did not care about that. He had done his job. He had kept people alive. That was all that mattered to him. That was the most human thing about him. 3 weeks after the rescue, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from every major species: humans, Drachnith, Aguacate, and dozens of others. Everyone wanted to speak. Everyone had an opinion. Because what had started as a simple rescue had turned into something that threatened to reshape interstellar politics. Ambassador Yoonji represented Earth at the council. She was a career diplomat, skilled at navigating the complex web of galactic relationships, but even she had not expected this. One rescue, one human. And suddenly everything was different. The Drachnith Empire sent their highest military commander, General Taeyang. He was old for a dragon warrior, his scales dark with age and battle scars. He had fought in wars across the galaxy. He had never shown weakness, never shown doubt. But when he stood to address the council, something was different in his voice. "The Drachnith Empire wishes to make a formal statement," Taeyang said. His translator rendered his deep voice into galactic standard. "For centuries, my people have believed that strength is measured in combat ability, in weapons. In victories, we thought species who valued mercy over power were weak. We were wrong." The chamber went silent. A Drachnith general admitting error was unprecedented. "Commander Vectros and his warriors would have died on that ice moon," Taeyang continued. "No Drachnith could have saved them. Our biology, our training, our technology, none of it mattered. We were helpless. But one human, armed with nothing but his will and his body, kept them alive for 23 hours. That is strength. That is true power. And the Drachnith Empire has been blind to it." He turned to where Yoonji sat. "The human named Hyun has taught us a lesson we should have learned long ago. We propose a formal alliance with Earth. We propose open borders and trade. We propose to learn from humanity what honor really means." The chamber erupted in discussion. A Drachnith alliance with humanity would shift the balance of power across the galaxy. Species that had been neutral suddenly had to choose sides. Old treaties had to be reconsidered. Admiral Suji stood next. Her skin flashed the gold color of formal pronouncements. "The Aguacate Collective has already signed the Viral Accord. We have committed to honoring all beings who demonstrate selfless courage. But we wish to go further. We propose a mutual defense pact with both the Drachnith Empire and Earth. If one human can bridge the gap between our species, then we should build on that bridge." More discussion, more debate. Some species supported the idea. Others worried about the implications. But everyone agreed on one thing: they could not ignore what had happened. In a medical facility on an Aguacate station, far from the political debates, Hyun was recovering. The doctors had cleared him for light activity. The tissue damage from cold exposure was healing. His body was returning to normal, but he still felt tired, like he had run a marathon and not quite recovered. He was sitting in a garden designed for human visitors when Bora found him. She had been released from medical care after the first day. Physically, she was fine. Emotionally, she was still processing everything. "There you are," Bora said. "Everyone is looking for you. The media wants interviews. The council wants you to testify. Admiral Suji wants to give you a medal." "I do not want any of that," Hyun said. "I know. But you are kind of a big deal now, Hyun sighed. He had seen the news reports, seen his face on broadcasts across the galaxy. Everyone was calling him a hero. They were analyzing his actions, writing papers about human biology, creating monuments, and he hated all of it. I just did my job, he said. I am a survival specialist. My job is keeping people alive in dangerous situations. That is what I did. For 23 hours, Bora said. You almost died. Almost does not count. Everyone survived. That is all that matters. Before Bora could respond, a massive shadow fell across the garden. Hyun looked up to see Commander Vectros. The dragon warrior had recovered fully, his scales bright red again, his movements strong. But there was something different in how he carried himself. Something humble. Hyun of Earth, Vectros said formally. I request a moment of your time. You do not have to be so formal, Hyun said. Just call me Hyun. Vectros sat down carefully. Even sitting, he was taller than Hyun. My people have a tradition. When one warrior saves another in battle, they become shieldkin. Bonded until death. It is the highest honor we can give. We were not in battle, Hyun said. We were just trying not to freeze. You were fighting. Against the cold. Against death. Against the universe itself. And you won. Vectros extended one large clawed hand. All 14 of us claim you as shieldkin. The Drachnith Empire honors this claim. You will always have our protection, always have our loyalty. This is a debt we can never fully repay. Hyun looked at the offered hand. He thought about refusing, thought about explaining that he did not want debts or honors. But then he saw the sincerity in Vectros's eyes. This was important to the commander, important to his people. Sometimes accepting thanks was harder than giving help. He shook Vectros's hand. Then I accept. But no more medals. No more ceremonies. I just want to go back to work. We will try, Vectros said. But the galaxy has other plans for you. Over the next few days, Hyun learned what that meant. The story had spread everywhere. Human children on Earth learned about him in school. Other species studied his actions to understand humanity better. The Varel Accord had been signed by 70 species and counting. It was becoming the foundation for a new kind of galactic cooperation based on mutual protection rather than mutual benefit. And at the center of it all, like it or not, was one swimmer who had refused to let people die. Lieutenant Yuna came to visit him on the third day. She brought news from the Aguacate fleet. Admiral Suji has declared that 102 ships will serve as your honor guard. Wherever you travel, they will escort you. It is a gesture of respect so profound that it has entered Aguacate legend. I do not need an honor guard, Hyun protested. Try telling that to Admiral Suji, Yuna said with a smile. She is very stubborn. Hyun was learning that about a lot of species. They had their own ways of showing respect, their own traditions. And they all wanted to honor what he had done. He tried to refuse, tried to explain he was not special. But they would not listen. Because to them, he was special. He represented something they had not fully understood about humanity. Not their technology, not their weapons, but their fundamental belief that protecting life was worth any sacrifice, that people mattered more than politics, that doing the right thing was more important than doing the easy thing. Ambassador Yoonji finally tracked him down a week later. She found him trying to hide in the medical library, reading about cold weather survival techniques. Still studying? Yoonji asked. I made mistakes, Hyun said. On the ice moon. I should have positioned the shelter better. Should have rationed the heat packs differently. I need to learn so next time I do better. Yoonji sat down across from him. Hyun, you saved 15 lives with basically nothing. There is no doing better than that. There is always room to improve. The ambassador studied him for a moment. Then she smiled. You really do not understand what you have done, do you? I kept people from freezing. That is my job. You changed galactic politics. You ended a war. You created the foundation for the largest peaceful alliance in galactic history, all because you refused to accept that some people were not worth saving. They were worth saving, Hyun said simply. Everyone is. And there it was. The core of human philosophy summed up in 3 words. Everyone is worth saving. It was not complicated. It was not political. It was just a fundamental belief that life had value regardless of who lived it. Yoonji pulled out a datapad. The council wants you to speak, just once. Tell them what you were thinking on that ice moon. Help them understand. I was thinking about not dying, Hyun said. Then tell them that. Tell them whatever you want. But they need to hear it from you. Hyun thought about it. He did not want fame, did not want attention. But if speaking once would let him go back to normal life, maybe it was worth it. One speech, he agreed. Then I want to go home. The speech happened 3 days later. The entire Galactic Council assembled. Every major news network broadcast it. Hyun stood at the podium in his simple diplomatic uniform, looking small compared to the massive chamber around him. He spoke for 5 minutes. He did not use fancy words or political language. He just told the truth. He said he had been scared. He said he had not known if anyone would rescue them. He said he had just used his training and did what he thought was right. He said the Dragon Warriors had helped by huddling together, by trusting him, by fighting to stay alive. He said Bora had maintained the beacon that let them be found. He said the Aguacate rescue team had saved everyone with their skill and speed. And he said that he did not think what he did was special. He thought it was just being human. Humans protected each other. They protected anyone who needed help. It was not about being heroes. It was just about not being able to walk away when someone needed you. The speech was simple, basic, honest, and it became the most watched broadcast in galactic history. Because Hyun had done something that species across the galaxy had forgotten was possible. He had made heroism seem normal, not something for special people or special circumstances. Just something you did because it was right. After the speech, Hyun was allowed to go home. He returned to Earth to his small apartment in a coastal city. He went back to work for the diplomatic corps. He went swimming in the ocean like he always had. But he was not forgotten. The Varel Accord stood as a monument to what he had done. The alliance between the Draknith and humanity grew stronger each year. The Aguacate honor guard followed him discreetly, protecting him without interfering. And somewhere on the ice moon of Varel 7 a memorial was built. It was simple, just a stone marker with 15 names, 14 dragon warriors and 1 human, and a message in galactic standard, here, one being showed the galaxy what strength truly means. Not the power to destroy, but the will to protect. Not the ability to conquer, but the refusal to abandon. May all who read this remember, everyone is worth saving. Hyun never visited the memorial. He did not need to. He knew what he had done. He knew why he had done it, and he knew he would do it again if needed because that was what humans did. They protected. They endured. They refused to give up. That was humanity. That was enough.